And every day I feel like I carry, Scott Patrick Wilson with me every day.
John Goodman has been sentenced to 16 years behind bars.
A judge denies the polo mogul a new trial. Our team of News Channel 5 reporters covering every angle of this case, and we have live analysis of what's next. Good evening. I'm Michael Williams.
And I'm Shannon Cake. After an almost 2.5-hour hearing, Judge Jeffrey Colbath sentenced John Goodman to 16 years in prison.
An emotional day in court as we hear from Scott Wilson's mother and Goodman himself, as you just did, before the sentencing. An appellate bond hearing is going on at this hour, though they're in a recess for the moment. Now, News Channel 5's Jay Cashmere is leading our team coverage. He joins us live from outside the Palm Beach County Courthouse. Jay?
Michael, Shannon, a very emotional and powerful day as we wrap up this whole case that began on February of 2010 with the tragic killing of 23-year-old Scott Wilson. As you mentioned, Judge Jeffrey Colbath sentencing the 48-year-old John Goodman today to 16 years behind bars. He'll at least serve 85% of that, so he will be in prison at least for the next decade or so. His license was permanently revoked today. The judge did issue time already served, which is a little bit more than a month and a half, but a very powerful day inside the court. Prior to that sentencing hearing today, we heard from John Goodman himself. It was a very brief statement. We also heard from Lily Wilson, a very tearful statement, a very emotional statement as well. Now, prior to all of this today, Judge Jeffrey Colbath threw out a motion for a new trial. That surrounded all the drama with juror Dennis DeMartin. Judge Colbath basically saying that the actions of Dennis DeMartin really did not indicate egregious conduct. While it was a misconduct in itself, it was really not to the extent that it tainted this jury, that it did not influence the jury. So there we have it now, 16 years behind bars, the sentence for John Goodman. The trial, which happened back in March, 3 weeks long, powerful day, as you mentioned, still going on. A lot of details on the appellate bond that could be invoked in this case. Still waiting to hear that. The judge is ruling on that as we speak behind us. I want to turn things over right now to Alex Sands. He's been covering this case with me side by side from the other side of the courthouse with more on today's proceedings. Alex.
Well, Jay, the issue of jury misconduct set aside now, resolved for the time being. Ahead of a sentencing hearing, now apparent that for the past several hours, what swayed this judge's mind was in fact very powerful, very emotional testimony inside the courtroom, as you said, before heading down that 16-year sentence for John Goodman on that conviction of DUI manslaughter in connection with with Scott Wilson's death. A very emotional moment inside the courtroom, as you know, as many members of the family, Scott Wilson's mother, friends of the family speaking on behalf of the family, the father, and of course John Goodman for a time himself, saying he was remorseful for what happened that day back in February of 2010. The judge also toward the end of his sentencing hearing say he wasn't quite buying the story that John Goodman gave to the jury the day of his testimony here at the Palm Beach County Courthouse. And again, he said all this in part may have swayed him in the end with how he ruled earlier today.
A parent's greatest fear is receiving a telephone call in the middle of the night informing them of a son or daughter's injury or death. Everyone thinks they can imagine the terror of such a call, of their anguish in learning of a child's death. I now know I did. I now realize, however, that no one really knows what it feels like to lose a child until it actually happens.
By dying at such a young age, he will never have the opportunity to work as a professional after graduating from engineering school. He will never have the opportunity to marry and raise a family of his own. He will never have the opportunity to pass on his intellectual gifts and accomplishments to future generations.
Scott Wilson was my age. In the days that followed the accident, I remember my Uncle John looking at me and saying, "Hutton, he was your age. It could have been you." I can say with unwavering confidence that my Uncle John would have done absolutely anything in his power to save Scott Wilson had he known he was in the canal.
I just wanted to say that from the second, the day after the accident, all I've wanted to do is reach out to the Wilsons and be with them and to cry with them and to, I can't imagine or even pretend to imagine what it would be like to lose a son. And every day I feel like I carry, Scott Patrick Wilson with me every day, and that's all I think about.
It is a decisive day as one chapter in the story closes and another one begins here at the Palm Beach County Courthouse. Of course, the person at the center of much of this day was juror Dennis DeMartin, The allegations of jury misconduct, that what he wrote in a book about drinking the night before the verdict may have influenced his decision, and beyond that, the deliberations of his jury. He spoke exclusively with News Channel 5's Jeff Skripek throughout this legal saga here at the Palm Beach County Courthouse. Jeff is live in Delray Beach this hour. Jeff, only on 5 this hour, you have an exclusive interview with Dennis DeMartin.
Well, Alex, after both the state and the defense made their case surrounding those juror misconduct allegations that were up for discussion today, the judge brought in the juror this all surrounds, Dennis DeMartin, asked him a series of 3 questions. The first, did he make up anything in his book? The second big, did he take a particular prescription medication during this set experiment? And did he tell any other jurors about drinking 3 vodka tonics the night before deliberations? Now, joining us live right now is the juror this all surrounds, Dennis DeMartin. Now, Dennis, you said that you answered no to all 3 of those questions. What did you think about the judge's line of questioning?
I thought it was fair and accurate, and again, like the last time, it was easier than I thought. I thought there'd be more questions involved. I tried to be truthful, and that's all I could say.
Now, while you were sitting up there, all eyes were on you. There was a lot at stake with what you had to say. What was going through your mind when you were sitting up there?
Well, I was nervous, naturally, from when I got there. I felt that as the questions opened, though, I felt a little more relaxed. And I looked at Mr. Goodman once or twice, and everything seemed to go okay, I hope.
Now that you've seen how this is all played out, mostly all of this brought up because of what you've said and because of the book that you've published and talk about, if you could go back and change anything, would you?
I wouldn't. I'd still write the book, but as I said, I made a mistake probably about the drinks. I just felt that wasn't part of the reason I found him guilty. It was to see if he would be capable of all his faculties when it happened.
What now, Dennis?
What now? I hope I could rest, and I have another book coming out in October.
All right, Dennis, thank you so much for your time. And as Dennis said, he believes that questioning from the judge is through, but he says that he's being told by the court that he could be a part of another set of questioning if and when John Goodman's defense files for an appeal. Jay, we're going to send it back to you at the courthouse.
Jeff Skripek, along with my other colleague Alex Sands, covering other angles of this case for us. Jeff, thank you very much. I want to welcome in News Channel 5 legal analyst Michelle Suskauer. You know, it was very interesting. Judge Colbath started hammering away at his thoughts on this case and why he issued the 16-year sentence. He was talking about John Goodman's level of intoxication being double the legal limit, his actions after the crash, and, in fact, his testimony that it didn't appear remorseful. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's interesting when you hear the judge actually break down why he's doing what he's doing. But what he did was he gave him a guideline sentence, a sentence that really fell squarely in the middle, kind of halfway between what the defense wanted and what the state wanted, ultimately. 16 years versus 11 and a half or 20. But it was interesting because, you know, the judge is hearing the testimony from his angle, and he also reiterated several times, the jury has spoken, I agree with the jury, this is what they found. But sort of the extent and the emphasis he put on how intoxicated he thought he was, how he left the scene, and all he had to do was just stand there, and maybe he could have done something potentially to help Scott Wilson.
Were you surprised at the 16-year sentence?
I thought he was going to do what the state asked him to do, which was give him 20 years. I really didn't think that he was going to go as low as 11 and a half. But, so I was slightly surprised, yes.
Right. Michelle Suskauer, legal analyst. Sure. Michelle, thanks so much for your analysis today. It is important to know that Judge Colbath's parents and his wife were in the courtroom today, just to give you a little indication of the raw emotion that surrounded that courthouse today on a very, very pivotal day in this trial. That is the latest from outside the Palm Beach County Courthouse. Again, we are awaiting developments of the appellate bond. They're in recess. We'll keep you posted out here as the developments in this court case continue. For now, we'll toss it back to the studio.
Certainly no jobs were easy in that courtroom today. Jay, thanks for that report. That brings us to tonight's Feedback 5 poll. Do you agree with the judge's decision today? Let us know on our Facebook page. We'll have the results a little bit later in this broadcast.
And please